Welcome to your October 2021 horoscope. My name is Cailin, and today I'm going to be covering the major transits for the month ahead using tropical astrology and the whole sign system. I strongly recommend that you watch your horoscope for your ascendant sign first and foremost, because it will be the most accurate for you overall. Having said that, if you've got time to watch your horoscopes for your sun and moon sign as well, please do so, because the sun sign horoscope will tell you more about your life goals and your career, whereas the moon sign horoscope will pertain more to your family life and your current living circumstances. Now, I've got an exciting promotion which will run from the first 2 weeks from when these videos go live. You'll be able to book a 45-minute Zoom reading with me where I will use astrology and tarot to answer questions that you have about one major area of your life in extensive detail. This service is normally priced at $120, but you can book this one for the first 2 weeks only for just $90. If you want to book this reading with me, or if you want to see the list of my services that are available, you can head to the link in the description box below. Now, before I get into the horoscopes, I just wanted to say to you guys, thank you so much for all of your warm words of welcome. I read all of your comments on my horoscope series for September, and I was actually quite overwhelmed by how much love and support you guys were showing me. So thank you so much. And of course, a big thank you to Lada for giving me the opportunity to present to your amazing audience. And now let's dive into the horoscopes. Hi Cancer, Sun, Moon and Risings. Welcome to your October 2021 horoscope. On the 1st of October or the 30th of September, depending where you live in the world, Venus in Scorpio in your 5th house will square Jupiter in Aquarius in your 8th house. For those of you who own your own business, this transit represents the expansion of this business in a way which forces you to launch something prematurely. Now, I say that because Venus rules over your 11th house, which represents large groups of people. It represents the internet, it represents anything that we do online, and it certainly represents social media. Now, Venus is all about our creative gifts and our artistic talents, and this square to Jupiter poses a tense and uncomfortable aspect, but Jupiter expands everything that it touches. Now, because Jupiter rules over your 9th house, which represents import and export and also publishing, you may be pushed into a corner where you feel like you have to put something out there before it's ready, because the masses or because people on your online social media platforms are demanding more from you. They are requesting that you put products out there or services out there which are not fully finished, or you haven't, honed your skills or really done the fine tuning. But a quote comes to mind, which is jump off a cliff and build your wings on the way down. Essentially, guys, you don't have too much of a choice here. It's either you choose to stop your growth because you feel that you're not ready, or you take the plunge and you just, hope for the best that what you put out there, even if it's half done in your opinion, will take off and you'll be able to fine tune it in the future. Now, on a different level, you could just be absolutely working to the bone with your own business or on something artistic and creative that you do. This could be an artistic project or a creative endeavor. You don't need to own your own business. It could be that you have agreed to donate some kind of art piece to a large group or community, or maybe you are auctioning it off in a raffle for social justice causes and you're trying to raise money. In any case, something that you are creating or producing isn't ready in your opinion, but the world is ready to see it. Now, on a different level, with regard to your hobbies and passions, they could take an unexpected turn where you need to act quickly. So with Jupiter ruling over your 6th house, which represents your work, and with Jupiter ruling your 9th house, which represents education and travel, you may have this opportunity to invest further in your hobbies and your passions and your creative gifts and talents. So maybe you're being asked to present to a large group of people, or maybe you're being asked to teach or to mentor or tutor. In any case, the overwhelming vibe with this transit is that Jupiter is demanding that you expand your growth and your horizons, and you don't feel ready, but you've really just got to, take the next step and trust in the bigger picture as represented by Jupiter ruling your ninth house of faith that you will succeed. Now, on the 6th of September, there will be a new moon in Libra in your fourth house. The fourth house rules over property matters, it rules over your family life, and it rules over children as well. I mean, the fifth house does too, but they represent family in different ways. So whenever we see a new moon, which is at least once a month, it represents a new chapter starting in our lives, or planting the seed to start something new in some respect. So on the property front, this can see some of you purchasing a property, selling a property, signing a new lease, or giving up an old lease. So this new moon in Libra is making a number of aspects. It will be exactly conjunct Mars at 13 degrees, and this new moon will be in a wide conjunction with Mercury, which will be retrograde at that time. It will also be trining Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius in your 8th house, and making an exact in conjunction to Uranus and Taurus in your 11th house. With regard to property, things are going mostly well. If you are purchasing a house, I believe that you'll be able to secure the property, especially if there's been some kind of issues leading up to this point. And that's represented by this wide conjunction to Mercury, which is retrograde. So maybe you put an offer on. Maybe there's been a lot of backing and forthing with regard to counteroffers and the negotiation process. You certainly could be working in real estate yourself. So, the shoe could be on the other foot. Maybe you're trying to close a deal, especially if you're a Cancer sun. But in any case, because of this trine to Saturn and Jupiter in your 8th house, which represents mutual resources, I see the property negotiation process resulting in total and utter fairness. And I say that because Saturn and Jupiter are in Aquarius, which represents equality. So I suspect that you won't pay a dollar over what that property is worth. Or if you're selling a property, you will sell it at pretty much exactly the market value. Now, the same goes for if you're signing a lease or renting out your own property. Now, with this in conjunction to Uranus and Taurus in your 11th house, you just need to be careful that your finances are all in order, because Uranus itself is already quite an unpredictable and chaotic energy to deal with, and it rules over your 8th house of mutual resources. So the 8th house represents anyone who is handling your finances, or anyone that you are purchasing something in a joint capacity with. So make sure that your financial planner, or that your broker, or anyone who's dealing with your finances, even the banks, are looking after you and making sure that all of your financial documents are in order, that all of your pay slips are up to date. There really is just like this potential for some kind of kerfuffle when it comes to your finances, especially because Mercury will still be retrograde, like I said. And make sure you're not misinterpreting advice that comes from a friend or an older sibling, as represented by Uranus being in the 11th house. Now, some of you may very well be falling pregnant. Now, I say that because your 4th, 5th, and 8th house are all activated here. Obviously, the new moon is taking place in your 4th house, which represents family. Like I said, it's exactly conjunct Mars, which rules your 5th house, which represents children. And with this trine to Saturn and Aquarius in your 8th house, which represents giving birth and falling pregnant, when we see the 4th, 5th, and 8th house all activated, this can spell pregnancy. Now, on a different level, some of you may be approved for adoption. And I say that because of this trine to Saturn and Aquarius in your 8th house. So Saturn here represents some kind of government approval, and Jupiter represents adoption. And, Jupiter is about taking someone in, or taking something in out of the goodness of your heart. So Jupiter does have links to adoption, as would Neptune. Nonetheless, on a totally different note, For those of you who are parents, maybe your child is simply progressing to the next developmental stage of their life. Now, on the 9th or the 10th of October, depending where you live in the world, we will see the Sun, Mars, and Mercury all being conjunct at 16 degrees in Libra. So now that the moon has grown a little bit from a couple of days ago when it was just a new moon, this shows that it is a good time to plant those seeds. This will be a good date to sign documents, to try and fall pregnant. And I know some of you are going to say, hey, but Mercury is retrograde. It doesn't matter. We can't just not do stuff because Mercury is retrograde. Speaking of which, between the 6th and the 19th of October, we will see 4 planets all stationing direct. So on the 6th or the 7th of October, we will see Pluto stationing direct in the sign of Capricorn, which means that this is occurring in your 7th house. Pluto spends about 5 months of every year being retrograde, so this is not something that we're not accustomed to, but it is significant that we are seeing 3 planets which are all currently in Saturn-ruled signs turning direct. So what this means for you Cancerians is that your one-on-one relationships can be totally transformed. Now, for those of you who are in a committed relationship, this can just indicate that your partner has basically completed some kind of transformational period or phase in their life, which has been spanning the last 5 months approximately. Now, on the 11th of October, Saturn will station direct in your 8th house in the sign of Aquarius. So for those of you who have been waiting on government approved or government directed funds to hit your bank account, this is essentially a green light for you. So that can include, but is not limited to, receiving an inheritance, receiving child support, receiving alimony money, or even just if you won some kind of court case and you were waiting for those funds to come through, they can do so after this date. Now, on a different level, for those of you who are in a committed relationship, Saturn turning direct can show there being more structure and stability in their finances. So maybe they were a contract worker previously, or they worked in freelance type of work and now they've got a more permanent role. Now on the 18th of October, Jupiter will station direct in Aquarius in your 8th house. The 8th house is sometimes referred to as the house of sudden reversals. Now because Saturn is also direct and it rules over Aquarius, and we've got Jupiter in Aquarius, long story short, things can start going well with regard to your mutual resources. Maybe you're now able to pay off some kind of loan that you took out. Jupiter rules over your work, so maybe you're now enjoying your work more, or perhaps you are given more work responsibilities, which leads to more expansion and growth. The 6th house also represents your health, and with Jupiter in the 8th house, which is sometimes known as the house of miracles, you may actually have some kind of sudden reprieve from a health ailment or a health issue that you've been dealing with. In any case, with Jupiter ruling your 9th house of education and travel, you may experience the green light, or you may be able to put some travel plans in motion, or maybe you're able to just progress with your education studies. Now on the 19th of October, Mercury will station retrograde in Libra in your 4th house. Now once again, the 4th house rules over family, property, and for some of you, you could just be ironing out these issues that you've experienced with property matters, whether that's buying, selling, renting something out. This could be about your investment properties. In any case, with Mercury ruling over your 3rd house, which represents documentation and contracts, if you've been waiting on some documents from your landlord or from your real estate agent or from a prospective tenant, you can finally receive those and things can just go swimmingly with regard to property. In any case, with respect to family, you may have reconnected with a family member that you hadn't been speaking to, or maybe you were estranged with them, or maybe you had some kind of argument or falling out and now you've resolved matters with that individual. Now, also on the 19th of October, Mars in Libra in your 4th house will trine Jupiter in Aquarius in your 8th house. For some of you, your family may decide to help you out with regard to purchasing a property, looking after your children, or they could just be allowing you access to your inheritance money early. Mars rules over your 10th house, which represents your career, and it also rules over your 5th house, which represents children. So maybe they have agreed to babysit your children so that you can focus on your career. Now, because Jupiter rules over your 9th house of education and travel, maybe your parents are footing the bill for your education studies, or maybe they're giving you money to go on a trip. Now, on a different level, some of you may take an avid interest in your family history. So the 4th house represents our ancestry, it represents our cultural roots, and Jupiter represents different cultures as well. Now, because of this trine to Jupiter in your 8th house, maybe you're discovering some kind of secret when it comes to your ancestry. Now, maybe your ancestry has links to something which is quite occult or taboo in nature. Maybe you find out that they were tarot readers or astrologers, or maybe they just have some kind of ancient wisdom to bestow upon you, or maybe there's ancient knowledge for you to discover here. Now, this information could be from someone who is alive, or it could be someone who has passed on to the other side. And I say that because Jupiter is in the 8th house, which is the house of death. So you may discover that you have these intuitive or psychic abilities which you inherited from someone who is no longer around. Now, on the 20th of October, there will be a full moon in Aries in your 10th house. The 10th house in astrology represents your career, your reputation, and your public persona. So obviously not all of you are currently employed. Some of you may very well have retired already. And so I'm going to run through a few different ways that this can play out for you. Essentially, full moons indicate something reaching its peak or something reaching a culmination point. Now, for some of you, this may be a career milestone. So you receiving some kind of promotion or an increase in your professional responsibilities could coincide with this full moon in Aries in your 10th house. Now, this may see some of you resigning around this time or choosing to retire. Now, I say this because Mars will actually be conjunct the Sun, which will be in your 4th house of home. So whenever we have a full moon, the moon and the sun are in exact opposition with one another, which means the moon is in your 10th house of career and the sun is conjunct Mars in your 4th house of home and family life. So for some of you, you could just be coming full circle and returning to home, whether that's resigning, retiring, or taking some kind of leave of absence. Maybe you're becoming a parent. Maybe you've just become a grandparent and you're like, hey, I want to resign and actually enjoy time with my growing family. In any case, this does represent a bit of a bittersweet energy. And I say that because this full moon in Aries will actually be making a square to Pluto in Capricorn in your 7th house. So the 7th house represents our one-on-one relationships, and it also represents how the audience perceives us. Yes, the 10th house represents our reputation, but in any case, this is about how other people are perceiving our actions. And this achievement or this end of an era can see some of the relationships that you have with other individuals being rubbed the wrong way. Maybe you're having to choose this next step in your journey for yourself, and maybe this is at the expense of a relationship, or maybe they just don't approve of the timing of whatever career milestone you have achieved or whatever marker in your professional life is taking place. On a totally different level though, this square to Pluto in Capricorn may just indicate that there's something which is quite troubling or some kind of crisis which is going on in the personal life of your significant other, of your maternal grandmother, of your second-born child, or it could just be of a close friend, and maybe they're going through a difficult time, and what they are going through is quite juxtaposed with the success and with the celebrations that you want to take place for what's happening in your life. In any case, the bottom line here is that some kind of win or victory which is occurring in your life is essentially at odds or is the opposite experience of what someone in your life is having to deal with. Now, lastly, an important chapter could just be coming to a close in their life, and this could be with regard to their family. So maybe something's going on with their parents or with their siblings or even in their family home that they used to grow up in, and maybe they're just having an adjustment period and you're needing to offer more support to them. Now, lastly, for the month, on the 22nd of October, Mars in Libra in your 4th house will square Pluto in Capricorn in your 7th house. The 4th house represents your home life and your family life, and once again, the 7th house represents your significant other or anyone that you're in a close one-on-one relationship with. In a nutshell, this does spell some kind of discord or arguments which take place either between your children and your significant other, your children and your parents, your firstborn and secondborn children, or perhaps it's your parents and your significant other. Another way that this can play out is that you feel pressured by either your family or people that you live with, or even just like your cultural traditions and the expectations of that culture to date someone. Or maybe you're just feeling this pressure like you are meant to be settling down or that you are meant to be starting a family. Lastly though, there may just be big demands on your time and on your energy levels by children in your life, and this could be godchildren, nephews, and nieces. Now, there is one more transit for the month, but I'm not going to cover it this month, and that will be Mars entering the sign of Scorpio on the 30th or the 31st of October. That will be the very first transit that I discuss in my November horoscopes. So if you enjoyed this horoscope, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content on this channel, please hit the subscribe button. I hope you enjoy your October, and I will see you guys next month.